Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Orange Pill Podcast. My name is Graham Elwood, broadcasting from our beautiful studios here in San Salvador. I hope you enjoyed the beautiful new graphic we had after the Sbarro graphic from Monday's episode. We really got on it and got a brand new fancy graphic popped in there. So thank you, everybody in the chat. Like, share, subscribe, share this out on your social media. We are currently streaming on Orange Pill's YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, and the Orange Pill Twitter feed. So if you're watching on one of those, make sure you're following the other ones. Follow at Orange Pill Pod, and I'm youtube.com/Graham Elwood or youtube.com/@OrangePill. Those are the places. So make sure you follow all those analytical things. Very much help us keep the show going. And I'm gonna move that just off of frame. It looks weird. It's just kind of water with tea. It looks weird. I don't like it. We're gonna have it right there. Okay, here we go. Without any further ado, let's bring them on from the Orange Pill bunker in parts unknown. Ladies and gentlemen, it is Max and Stacy. How you guys doing?
Still cold, Graham. We need to get back to the tropics. You know, non-tropical locations suck, but yeah, it's a good. Well, I guess it keeps us cooler while the price of Bitcoin is quite hot.
Yes, it is. It just broke 61,000 today.
Actually, Graham, you're wrong. It hit 64,000.
What? Man. That is amazing. So we haven't had that price in 3 years.
No, we haven't had that price in 3 years, and it's getting very, very close to new all-time highs, of course. And of course, when it breaks through new all-time highs, that would trigger a lot of buy stop orders. People will pile in an aggressive way. You'll see it pop to 100,000. This will trigger institutional fear of missing out, or FOMO, on a major scale. We're seeing that now happen in the banks, the institutions, the hedge funds. So they're going to come in with these huge orders. I saw somebody noticing that there was a huge multi-billion-dollar trade just in the last 48 hours, and they paid something like $1.25 in fees, and it's the magic of Bitcoin. So this is now getting into, I would say, the second inning of this leg of the big bull market, this particular phase of the bull market.
Yeah, it's quite amazing because it's so funny. All of us in the Bitcoin space, I was talking to several friends of mine a year ago when it was at 19,000, and they were like, well, I don't know. And I go, guys, just buy it. Like, it's gonna, and had they would have tripled their money. I mean, I posted this on Twitter. I converted a USD IRA to a Bitcoin IRA, and my money is now more than doubled. It's almost 3 times its value. And
yeah, but Graham, you're thinking in fiat terms. Like, there is the fiat conversion rate doesn't matter, right? Because you're never going to sell that for dollars anyway. Mm-hmm. What it's indicating is that we're that much further along towards the apocalypse for the dollar, because it will come for the dollar too. It'll come for them last, but it will still come for the dollar. So that fiat dark ages is over, and this is good news. The good news is not like the fiat price. The good news is the good times are just getting started, and we're in the beginning of a Bitcoin Renaissance 2.0 happening around the world. It's concentrated right now in El Salvador because we're Bitcoin country. But I think these bleak times that we're going through, that we have gone through, I think we're going to come out on the other side in an age of lightness.
Yeah, like that Arnold Schwarzenegger line. I forget the movie, but he would say it this way: I like you, US dollar. I'm going to kill you last. Right. So the US dollar will be the last to succumb ultimately to the Bitcoin. But you've already got dozens of currencies are falling to Bitcoin as it makes new all-time highs in various currencies around the world. And so this is the fun bit.
Yeah, this is really exciting. And the thing I love about you guys is, Stacy, your unrelenting optimism. I'm reminded of when you were I don't know if you guys remember, the first time you were on my show was in like 3 years ago. It was around April of 2021. And I was in kind of a dark space. Everything, I'm covering all this politics and everything's collapsing and everyone's awful and Biden's awful and Trump's awful and everyone's awful. And you guys came on my show and like, yeah, this is amazing. We're doing great. And I was like, wait, what? How are you? What are you guys smoking? You're like, no, we're, and you told me about this show. Cause I only watched you at that point when you were on RT, and you were like, yeah, our Orange Pill podcast, we're just very, very optimistic. And it is one of the things that has drawn me into being a Bitcoin maxi is your optimism. It's with Stacy specifically, your optimism. Max, I love how much shit you talk. That's why we connect, because we're both comedians that love talking shit. So the way you talk shit, I love. But Stacy, your optimism has actually changed, helped me like let go of, oh, I'm going to fight the good fight and change America. I mean, I hope America doesn't implode. I mean, I'd love to be wrong. It looks like it's going to, but whatever, as you say, Bitcoin is just on this trajectory. And if you can clarify that, because there's a lot of people now that we're back to up in the 61, 64,000. We're about to break the all-time high of 69, 70. We'll probably break that pretty quickly. So there's all these new people flowing into the space.
Yes.
So help explain to them, because I really want to catch as many of the newbies as possible so they don't get caught up listening to some guy, who shall remain nameless, but has like a fanny pack and a drug problem or whatever like that. Like you want to get caught up to those guys. Help, explain that in a little more detail, what you were just saying about how you're like, Graham, that's like fiat thinking, and how this is people who are just coming into the space who are like, wow, what is this? What's going on? And how is this when they say, like, I've had people ask me, when you guys say, when Max says, and when Stacy says, it's going to go, the dollar goes to zero against Bitcoin. What does that specifically mean to someone who's not like in finance?
So I feel we're in, since the birth of Bitcoin, that was the beginning of the new era, of the Renaissance. Most of us didn't see it. The only one who saw it was Hal Finney, day one, right? That he saw the future. And, but most of us, it took a while and a certain, network effect. The swarm of Bitcoiners hit a critical mass, and the money printing also hit a critical mass. Like the March 2020 of, COVID, when they shut down the global economy and started printing money, was really the singularity moment of Bitcoin, I believe. Like that's when like the Renaissance, like the dawn happened, where everybody in the world understood it. And that's why we had Paul Tudor Jones and then Michael Saylor. And then all of this, where we are right today is because of that moment in March of 2020. But I think that, it's always the forces of dark and lightness throughout human history. We've had the dark ages in Europe, and then the age of enlightenment that was happening in the Arab world, and then it's swapped around. There's always humans seem to do that, right? There's lightness sparks darkness somewhere else, darkness sparks lightness somewhere else. And right now, the Bitcoin community is the source of hope and optimism, relentless optimism, we call it. But one of the things that you're going to have, the forces of darkness, the forces of fiat, that the legacy system, the incumbents who want to retain their power, the two sources of a lot of control they have over you. There's surveillance state and all that stuff, but they don't need that. They need just you and your human weakness for fear and greed. Those are the things that drive financial markets, and that's the thing that drives humans so much. So once you start to think of the fiat price and the conversion rate, rather than holding on 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin, as President Bukele tweeted today, that's where they have you, right? If they're starting like, oh my God, it was 60,000 just 2 days ago, and now it's 40,000. You're going to lose, you're going to lose, you're going to lose. Like they send fear into you. And so you go, oh, I better get rid of this Bitcoin, this precious Bitcoin that'll never be made again, right? And there's only 21 million of it. And I'm going to give away my Bitcoin because I'm afraid. But the same thing happens on the upside. They're going to target you for your greed. They're going to say, here, buy my shitcoin, right? Here we have this amazing shitcoin. You missed out on the previous bull runs or getting in early. And so you're just finding Bitcoin, like these newbies who you mentioned, who will be entering, Bitcoin space just now. They'll be like, look, some people that you're looking at in the world right now on the news, they got in at $1,000 or $100 or $10,000, and poor you schmuck, you have to get in at 60,000. But wouldn't you like to be able to get some Bitcoin at $100? Well, we have an opportunity for you right here. Buy my shitcoin, and it's going to go up, and you could buy Bitcoin. So they're going to target that greed that you're going to, you're going to think of that fiat price, and you wanted that $100 fiat price, not the sats, the number of sats that you want to stack and hold on to as long as you can. I know people have expenses and things like that they have to, live life, but they're going to try to shake you out of that. So when you start to talk about the fiat price, and if your friend had gotten in at 20,000 or 19,000, that they would triple their money, it's like, well, they would still have the same amount of sats. And that's the most important thing, right? Yes, the fiat conversion rate would have been, higher, but in your mind, you're even talking there like that they would sell it now and be able to buy a car or something like that, where right now more than ever is like so important to hold on to it, because, these cycles of Bitcoin of, bull market, bear market, bull market, bear market, there will be a certain parabolic moment where we just like take off like a rocket, and the whole fiat world just pretty much collapses. So you want to have your Bitcoin. I think that's within our lifetimes here. I don't think it's going to come in 100 years. I think it's more like on a horizon that we could all see 5-10 years. It could be this year. So you want to make sure you hold on to it and don't succumb to that fiat thinking of FOMO or fear or greed. Either one of those is going to shake you out of your Bitcoin, or your holding your sats.
That's a good point. So then that's how we really should be as we're talking to people coming into this, saying you just want to own as much Bitcoin as you can, regardless of price, because over time you will have more power.
You will have more sats, and that's power, that's energy, that's savings, that's your future. That's the future of humanity. That's relentless optimism. That's Renaissance 2.0. That's Enlightenment 2.0. That is history right in your hands, and you want to hold it.
Yeah, and also it's a matter of conviction. So this is a problem every investor has. I think it was Peter Lynch, famous money manager over there at Fidelity Magellan Fund, who in one of his books, he talks about the fact that most people do more researching a refrigerator to buy than they do researching the stocks that they're going to buy. And people tend to buy stocks without doing a lot of research. They hear somebody talk about it and they buy some. And so they don't really know why they're buying it. They like when the price goes up. But when the price goes down, they're like, you know what? I have no idea why I own this thing. I'm going to sell it, because they never took the time to learn about it and get educated by it. So they lack conviction. If you spend the time learning about it and educate yourself about Bitcoin, and your conviction goes up, then every time the price goes down, you see it as a buying opportunity. You see it as something that's valuable, that's on sale. Another interesting observation, it could have been Peter Lynch as well, who said that the stock market is a very strange place, because it's the only market in the world where when things go on sale, people run away from the price. Usually if you're at Walmart or some big store and something's on sale, 30% off, you're like, oh, great, I'm going to stock up right now. But this is the opposite in the stock market. So this is not unexpected, what you're describing there. And the best way to avoid dumping at the inappropriate time and to start stacking is to simply increase your conviction, which comes through education. And fortunately, there's so much information out there that it's not hard to put 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 hours or 1,000 hours into this and get your conviction up high.
That's a great point. I look at my own trajectory it was 4 years ago. I mean, it was when everything got shut down that I had owned some Bitcoin and some crypto and kind of understood it. It was when, again, like Stacy, like you said, the COVID shutdown kind of made me And a lot of others go, whoa, I better really learn. I better figure this out, because I already knew how corrupt the banking system was, because I had been studying that, and I had been a victim of that in the housing crisis. I lost my home, and I was like, I'm never going to let that happen to me again. And when I started to understand Bitcoin, I was like, oh, and really, like you say, most of us, unless, very, very small handful of people got Bitcoin immediately. Most of us kind of got it varying levels and had sort of a learning curve. And, I got in and listened to some of these Bitcoin shows and buy and sell and technical analysis and this and that. And then what increased my orange pill was when it was Michael Saylor who said, I saw an interview with him. He goes, look, I wrote a book on software tech stocks, and I'm the most knowledgeable about that industry. And I can't predict when that price is going to go up and down. So, and he just says, just buy your Bitcoin. He just screams it, don't sell your Bitcoin, just buy it and hold it. Obviously, like you say, if you have some sort of expenses, you need to, whatever, everyone's personal situation is different, or you've had a big, and you want to pay off your mortgage, or I don't know, whatever. But like, ultimately what you're saying, and to just make this clear to the audience, buy Bitcoin and hang on to it. And that's what, like,
yeah, well, March 2020, it was actually from February 25th, 2020, and then through March. Okay. So there was a 6-week period, a 5-week period where everything changed. Like the illusion, as President Bukele mentioned at CPAC, the illusion of fiat came to a screeching halt. Like even I, who had been covering financial markets and financial crimes and fraud and fiat money printing and central bank and Ron Paul and Occupy Wall Street for 12, 13 years at that point. Even I was enlightened. Like it was a global moment of epiphany for everybody to see. First of all, the US committed hara-kiri for the dollar, right? By seizing $600 billion worth of treasuries from Russia. So that immediately nuked the dollar, because it was no longer actual wealth. It was no longer savings. You couldn't save in it because they could nuke $600 billion worth from somebody. So it was not immutable and censorship resistant like Bitcoin, right? So they did that, which was a total shock. I was stunned by it. It took me quite a while to process it. And then they just, at the same time that all of that was happening, COVID hit and they shut down the global economy. They just turned it off. And again, I was just like stunned. I thought like what are they going to shut it down for 24 hours or 36 hours? Like what's going on? And then a week passes and 2 weeks pass and 3 weeks. And you're like, how is this possible? Like you can't just shut down in a global economy. This isn't possible. Everybody saw that. But also what happened in March of 2020 was, I guess, it was all the panic of when the lockdown happened, when the US went into lockdown. There was chaos in the markets and Bitcoin fell. But I guess it was because of all of the leverage and derivatives and BitMEX in particular. BitMEX exchange was like tumbling. Remember, Bitcoin fell something like 25% in one day. And I remember receiving all sorts of messages from friends saying, is this going to stop? Is Bitcoin going to stop falling? I was like, well, I hope so. Like, it just keeps falling. But at that moment, I never thought of selling it. Like, I was like, well, I hope it stops falling. It was a friend wanting to know if they should sell. And do you think it's going to go to zero? And I'm like, I hope not. Like, that's all I can do is hope it doesn't. And then BitMEX like shut down and turned off. And then, basically Bitcoin found a bottom because their algorithm, whatever was like going crazy there, stopped. But unbeknownst to us, while all of this chaos was happening, the seizing of the $600 billion, the shutdown of the global economy, and the money printing that happened, that they were just going to send everybody some money to stay home. Paul Tudor Jones, who's one of the smartest, most legendary hedge fund investors in the world, he was watching all of this, and that's when he started to buy Bitcoin, right? And he said to, we know some people who were friends with him and talking to him at the time. And he was like, you look at this, like Bitcoin prices fell like 50% in the course of that month. And you know what? Nobody sold. Like these lunatics held on to that. He's like, I've never seen anything like this. And whatever it is, I've got to buy it because these are lunatics. I want to be in there with this sort of crowd that just doesn't get shaken out. So he entered the space, and then he was actually first, and then Michael Saylor also followed soon after. But once we covered that on Orange Pill Podcast, once Paul Tudor Jones came in, like that's the smart money, like that's the really smart money, institutional, like he's not institutional, but like in front of the institutions, he's the sort of guy that institutions would consider, well, if this guy is doing it, then we need to get into Bitcoin. Right, Max?
Yeah, absolutely. Paul Tudor Jones, I remember when he got into it, he's a legendary trader, and he went on CNBC and talked about it and the impact of the core owners and buyers of Bitcoin, the network effect. And Michael Saylor talked about this as well, the cyber hornets, as he calls them, and the hodlers. And there's a core kind of floor to Bitcoin. During the era of the central bank supremacy, which is from 1980 to 1922, so a 42-year reign of central banks in the world, there was something called the Greenspan put, which is that every time markets go down, the central banker, this was started by Alan Greenspan, would lower interest rates and bail out Wall Street. So they kind of like took a new direction for the Fed. The Fed, that wasn't really the Fed's job until we saw this phenomenon take place during the Greenspan years, and it's continued all the way up through current Fed chairman. Well, with Bitcoin, you have what's called really the Michael Saylor put, or let's call it the Larry Fink put. So every time you see some price weakness, these guys come in with huge orders. So you've got huge orders coming in on any price weakness. And that's the floor. Like the floor is established. It's not going to go beneath that floor because these bids are stacked up to buy the Bitcoin. And because they know now the jig is up. I mean, I would say this year now, finally, the major global institutional money understands now without any equivocation that Bitcoin is going to swallow the Forex market the same way the software industry swallowed the global industrial base, right? Software ate the world, right? Everything runs on software, and that started in the 1970s. And then Microsoft and Apple went public in the early 1980s. I was a stockbroker at the time, and the information age and software ate the world. And you see those great photos of, here's the 30 things you used to carry around with you, which are now on your phone, right? So it's like it totally transformed everything. Well, Bitcoin is eating the Forex market. It's eating the global kind of investment store of value and investment market, which is approximately $400 trillion in size. So even at $1.5 trillion in market cap, it still has a huge runway ahead of it. And once people who manage money professionally understand that, they have to start buying it. It's their fiduciary responsibility to get exposure to this asset class. If they do not, they would be subject to really anger from their clients who would say, you're violating your fiduciary responsibility because we have no Bitcoin in the account and you've deprived us of that performance. So now you've got that all kicking in.
But also, and also I want to bring up the fact that, like I said, Paul Tudor Jones noted that nobody was shaken out, right? These Bitcoiners, whoever they are, they were just kept holding. And that's really important, that the mindset of the Bitcoin community is ready for global dominance. Like we have the best perfect money. When you think of the control that the price signal in fiat financial markets has over the psychology and the mindset of the people, that they can put greed or fear. They turn it on. They just swap, a button. They press a button and they lower interest rates, send euphoria and greed throughout the entire economy. Then they put fear. They raise interest rates really fast. in order to stoke fear into the population, or they crashed the markets during, remember when Hank Paulson was looking for a $700 billion TARP that they pulled the number out of thin air, and Congress said no. And then the markets crashed, and then they said yes the following day because a whole bunch of people called them in fear of like, oh my God, my portfolio is going down. The same thing happened with the bond vigilantes. Like they crashed the bond market back in '92, and they forced Bill Clinton down from some of his acts. But Bitcoiners, like, because it's not a price that they're looking at, but the amount of sats that they hold, the percentage of the 21 million Bitcoin that they hold. It's a different way, like a different mindset, a different way of being, that we're more sovereign and independent in general. Obviously, now with the ETFs and a new wave of every cycle brings in a new wave of participants, and every new set of participants in the first bull market will tend to obviously be more fiat mindset. They might be more fear and greed driven. So, at the margin there, you're going to see more volatility. A lot of those newbies, for example, did sell. There was a huge sell-off by the minnows in January when the Bitcoin ETFs were launched, and the mainstream media said, oh, it was kind of a dud, and they all sold. So, bizarrely, and then you could see, because of on-chain analysis, you could see it was smaller holders that were selling. But presumably those were newbies who had gotten in, and they were just, maybe they got in at 19,000 and they were happy with 40,000. They're like, well, I doubled my money and my fiat money, and I'm happy. But what they hadn't yet understood the new paradigm that you want as many sats as possible rather than as a dollar value.
Yeah, Stacy brought up an interesting point there about people on Wall Street, people in finance can push a button and make markets go up, markets go down.
Yeah.
And this is probably not well understood, that they call it program trading. That's a common phrase, but program trading is just really market manipulation, or high frequency trading is another form of market manipulation. And it all started in 1987. In 1987, there was a massive crash, a 22% intraday crash of the stock market in the United States. And the lessons learned from that crash is that, my God, that accidental crash, and then what happened was the computers in New York and the computers in Chicago got into contentious doom loop, if you will, and they were feeding off each other, and you had this crash, this epic crash. And what the lesson learned was, that was an accident, but what if we could do that on purpose? If we can make markets drop 20% or rise 20% by this computer manipulation and information manipulation, it gives us incredible power. And since that time, and by the way, in the 1997 crash, was the first time in history that the federal government stepped in and started buying S&P futures contracts to bail out the stock market. So price discovery ended on October, the day after, the Monday after the Friday of the stock market crash. Pippa Malmgren, who's a market observer and writes a lot, has done some work on this and talks a lot about how the S&P futures contracts purchased by the federal government kind of ended free markets in America. So a lot of people say, capitalism sucks. Well, we don't have capitalism. We have something different. And anyway, so the markets are manipulated in this way. The long-term trend, you can't stop it. Like, the markets are on a longer-term trend. They will kind of seek out value. As Warren Buffett says, I believe the phrase is, in the short term, markets are a voting machine. In the long term, markets are a weighing machine. But in the interim, you get the volatility, and that volatility, in 90% of it is synthetic. It's created by players on Wall Street who are capturing the gains for themselves. And that money, of course, goes into lobbying Washington to pass more laws to make it easier to manipulate the stock market. So this is the doom loop we're in right now, while financiers that have completely undermined the economy. And the result is incredible dysfunction and dislocation and wealth concentration, the dangerous wealth concentration that we're experiencing now.
Yeah, and I want to add to this before we go to what they just said in Korea. But the thing that made what you both pointed out, but Paul Tudor Jones noticed in 4 years ago was like, wow, these people held. They didn't. There's this group of crazy Bitcoiners that held, and as someone who's only been in the space but 4 or 5 years, it was a year and a half ago when the FTX thing happened, and I was like, everyone was flipping out around me, and I was like, the fact that the floor is 16,000, that's pretty amazing considering like it should have gone to zero, whatever. And I go, the fact that, again, there was this even bigger group of like, we're not selling, and people were buying. I mean, that same group was like, oh, we'll buy this dip. We'll buy this dip. And the thing I love about Bitcoin, that's not some sort of like secret thing that you have to it's all transparent. So the people that like Paul Tudor Jones and Michael Saylor, and as you say, all of these other people in institutional money or that manage institutional money, they're reading the same stuff and they're seeing, that's the thing I love about Bitcoin. You can go, look how much Bitcoin has just been staying in cold wallets, not moving at all. It's just huge percentages. And that tells these traditional investors, oh, these Bitcoiners, the core hodlers, to me, seems like it just keeps growing and growing. The people that are waking up to this, like, don't sell, just stack sats.
Yeah, well, one interesting possibility could be a massive psyop, because in a false market signal. So maybe what Michael Saylor saw, and maybe what Paul Tudor Jones saw when he looked at the market and noticed that nobody was selling, is that nobody could find their keys. So therefore they were unable to sell. Or they lost their keys. They lost their keys. They couldn't find their keys. They lost the keys. So he looked at it, and he doesn't really know enough about Bitcoin to know maybe that this is the outcome, of this is the situation. And nobody could find their keys to sell. So the price got stuck. And he looked at it and said, oh my God, the conviction is so high, I'm going to buy. I mean, no one has made that point ever until just now, Graham, on the Orange Pill podcast.
That's why this show's great, because you make points that nobody else comes up with. I want to talk about this. Stacy, you put this out on Twitter, and this is just amazing. This is the thing. President Bukele tweeted this out. Stacy, you retweeted it, and you just put it's Bukele fever, which is, and I want to show this to the audience. This is from a Korean news channel. This is their, like, you can't hide from what is happening in El Salvador. You can try to say crazy stuff, and I'm going to show you a clip in a second of Liz Warren has said some more nonsense, but this is when, like, what Bukele has done here, and I'm here seeing it on a day-to-day basis, and it's now, you can't deny what he's doing. This is from Korea. Okay, so that was a lengthy response, but even before you guys respond to that, the thing that impressed me, well, first of all, they didn't come in with all of the like sort of ridiculous criticisms that the American press comes in with. I mean, they just sort of asked questions. They didn't like come in with this like slanted view that the American press has, that so clearly the American press has. And, it started out, the American press would usually do this the opposite way. They would start with all this negative stuff, and then like at the very end go, yeah, and some people consider him popular and the murder rate's down. Anyway, then they'd cut to some ad about a war or whatever, something like that, where they really spelled out all of the good stuff. And then just asked questions like a journalist should, just about these other issues. And it was really impressive to me that this is, Bukele fever is spreading around the world. And so, how do you guys see this as like not just Korea, but other countries will start to kind of wake up to what he's doing here?
I feel like it's early Bitcoin. So back in 2011, when we were covering Bitcoin, and it was $21 million market cap. It's now $1 trillion market cap. But at that time, it was tiny, right? In the world of finance. In 2011, who would have ever imagined, really? Not very many did, that, BlackRock and the rest of Wall Street would be, pumping their Bitcoin ETFs. So back then it was a tiny, tiny little member of the global financial community. El Salvador is a tiny, tiny country of 6.5 million people. Like, there are more people in Los Angeles or in New York City. But when anybody looked at Bitcoin, and we were covering it in Kaiser Report, the more eyes that looked at it, the more powerful Bitcoin grew in the financial sector, because what they found was perfect money. And the same thing has happened here. It was President Bukele first, when he adopted Bitcoin, that turned all eyes of the world in the media, well, especially US media, right? They looked at President Bukele and El Salvador. What is this Bitcoin? Why did this country adopt Bitcoin? And he fortunately was like a perfect leader. Bitcoin was perfect money. He's a perfect leader. And he's articulate and charismatic, and he could answer their questions, and he could deliver his, his principles and his vision. He was able to articulate it to the world in a mesmerizing way. And so they're very similar in that sort of regard, is that El Salvador's footprint in the global mind share is growing bigger and bigger, way beyond its small size of a country. So I think what you're seeing, it's like Korea is covering El Salvador. That is exactly what a leader should be doing, right? Part of a leader is like growing your economy, establishing your sovereignty and independence and all that stuff. But it's also drawing in the best and brightest around the world, bringing in tourists, putting the name of your country on the map. And he's doing a great job of that. He's a great salesman for El Salvador.
Yeah, what's remarkable watching all this Bukele mania grip the world is essentially the president is a political office holder, and politics is something, it's an idea that's 2,700 years old. It's an ancient idea, politics, invented in Greece. And yet he's made it sound like a new Apple computer, or a new Tesla rocket. These people think about the breathless way they're covering this. It's like the way they would approach a driverless car or a rocket to Mars.
True.
And they're describing essentially something that's as old as can be. The modern Western world defined 2,700 years ago by the polis, or politics. So in that regard, the man is a genius in reinventing the wheel, reinventing politics in a way that makes it incredibly exciting for people all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing that so strikes me, is in the way they're, but also like just from like Bitcoin, it's proof of work, right? Bitcoin is proof of work. So he's proven, like when he bought all the Bitcoin and everyone said, oh, he's gambling. And then the price went down and was like, oh, he's losing. It's like, to your point earlier, when you think in fiat terms and all the media in the world is thinking fiat terms, oh, the price is down, Bitcoin, oh, Bukele's gambling. It's like, well, now the price is back up. And if the fiat price is up, it's like, oh, now he looks like a genius. So it's really, there's proof of work. The quality of life is better because the crime is down. And yeah, I mean, like when I interviewed the Minister of Education last week, he's very upfront, and Bukele is upfront about this as well. There's a lot of problems this country still has because they're coming off of 4 decades or more of all of these problems. But like Bitcoin, that has these huge surges and more people get involved. Like you said, it had a 21 million market cap or whatever in 2011. Now we're over $1 trillion. And you're just seeing the quality of life is just going to get better and better in El Salvador. And it's going to become that this little country that it was only known for, as he said at CPAC, the really kind of disappointing marker of murder capital is now other countries are going to, hey, what are they doing there? Like the way they study like the Japanese education system, and that people are going to be studying this country as it gets better and better. And it is amazing to watch, and it's amazing to be a part of. And I'm so grateful for the Bitcoin community and for the two of you for really like inspiring me to come down here and be a part of this. Cause I'm seeing it. It's really, I went to the Bitcoin farmers market Sunday, and that was cool. I'm going to a meetup tomorrow night in San Salvador, and Roman just asked me to speak at the one in El Zonte on Friday. And I'm just like, it's so exciting to be a part of this, and that they're covering this in Korea. And there's people from Me Premier Bitcoin have just flown to Madeira. Like some of them have never traveled, and now they're going to Portugal, and everyone's going to look to them as like, oh, wow, you're from El Salvador. Like, speak to us, you know, like it's so impressive.
Right. Well, see, the 2-year bear market, when everybody was making fun of the president, and as you pointed out, that was actually a godsend for us, like what we've been doing in terms of the Bitcoin office. Man, we were building, and you'll see that, you know, we're so ready for this bull market. We will, you know, bull markets are hard, just as hard, if not harder, to survive for most people and companies, and you know, especially individuals, to survive with your integrity and holdings intact, right? So I think we are ready. Like, we built so much, especially that foundation of education. Is you talk to the education minister, the Bitcoin office got, you know, me permitted Bitcoin into all the high schools. We're working on a K-8 workbook now. We did Kubo Plus training Bitcoin and Lightning devs in El Salvador, Salvadoran Bitcoin and Lightning devs. We're about to start the 2024 class of Kubo Plus. We're training. We have a program training our civil servants and bureaucrats. So we've been like, it took a year for each program to build it. Like, it took a lot of work and a lot of time to build that, but we built it, and it was great to have the peace and quiet of the bear market to do that. And I mean, we built a lot of stuff, but you'll really see the results, how solid everything will be. Like, it's not a fragile foundation that exists in El Salvador. And we also attracted like a lot of the best builders in the Bitcoin space. And now with the bull market on, and Wall Street and US media talking about it, everybody's going to be trying to get those same people that we already landed, right? They're already like emotionally, psychologically, and physically committed to El Salvador. Their headquarters are there. They're moving there. They've committed to moving there. They're setting up their companies there. And you know, they're already committed to us. We were reaching out to them during the bear market. Nobody was thinking of them during the bear market but us. So I think you're going to see that 2024 and 2025, when the bull market is in the super parabolic phase, you're going to see that El Salvador really, you know, we have a great leader, we have perfect money, and you're going to see the results. It's going to be interesting. This is like giving the opportunity to live in Florence during the best time of the Renaissance.
Yeah, the bear market was definitely helpful, because a lot of the projects, the shitcoins, you know, they imploded, and they scared a lot of people off from, remember, that was the era of Terra Luna, and Celsius, and these other projects that just like blew up. And so and FTX famously, right? Sam Bankman-Fried, he was the king of that era, and he blew up, and everyone was really and rightfully on guard about the dangers of everything that's not Bitcoin. And so what we've been doing is really pushing the Bitcoin maximalist button, you know, hard, and that, you know, you don't have these problems with the Bitcoin, because it always encourages more conviction, and it's the only irreproducible asset of its kind ever. And you can't create irreproducibility twice. You can only do it once, and it's perfect money. And so, and now that the bull market is here, you know, the stage has been set, the foundation has been laid, and we're going to see some great things drop.
And remember what I said earlier about during bull markets, the greed will be just, if you look in the comment section, there's scammers in there trying to tell you to get Polkadot or internet computer coin. I mean, go to CoinGecko and look at internet computer coin. I just looked at that. Look at it, even in fiat terms, it's fucking disaster. But in Bitcoin terms, like it's a micro dingleberry on your butthole, right? So it's like that's what they're gonna try to convince you to buy somebody's dingleberry.
I think you have the title for the show, Graham.
Dingleberry butthole coin. That's the
yeah. But the problem is unit bias, right? So if it's 10 cents, it must be cheaper than something that's $60,000, right? But of course, if something's 10 cents, it can always go to 1 cent.
Exactly. And in this digital era, it could go to a micro fraction of a penny, like
Right.
0.00000000001.
You have to be zen about it. That's why I get these little finger symbols. You know, you put them one on this finger and one on your thumb, and you're ready to like totally zen out with your finger.
Did you bring those symbols on Alex Jones yesterday?
No, I left them at home.
No, but you know, find something like that to every time somebody comes at you, hoping that you're going to buy their dingleberry because it's supposedly going to make you more Bitcoin. It's going to magically triple your Bitcoin stash. Just realize, like, you must tune them out, because that is the way to certain destitution. You don't want to be homeless on the street of Philadelphia like a zombie with all those other freaks who probably were from previous shitcoin cycles, right? That they lost all their stash.
Yeah, shitcoin is a gateway drug to fentanyl.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. I only carry 2 books: the U.S. Constitution and the Bitcoin white paper. That's all you need. These 2 books to get you through the next 20, 30 years.
That's it. That's all you need. Well, before we go, speaking of having to be zen when you hear somebody say some crazy stuff, Liz Warren did a new interview and she just keeps, like, she's doubling down. I don't know if she's paid to say this nonsense or she's just like having a fever dream when she says these crazy things, but they're so easily irrefutable. This is what drives me nuts about American politicians and the media, is they say the dumbest shit that you could just check in under 60 seconds. And the time it would take you to go make a dingleberry coin.
She's like a dingleberry on a butthole.
She is. She's the dingleberry butthole of politicians. And I'm going to try. This is 1 minute and 16 seconds. Let's see if we can get through this without going insane.
I want to collaborate with the industry. What I don't understand is why the industry seems to be saying that the only way that they can survive is if there's plenty of space for the drug traffickers and the human traffickers, and the terrorists and the ransomware scammers and the consumer scammers and the rogue nations. North Korea, that is financing about half of its nuclear missile program with crypto, that all of that has to be left open. You know, keep in mind, in our financial system, pretty much everybody follows the same set of rules.
Okay, stop right there. That fucking that is driving me up a goddamn what is she talking? Like, really? This is the financial system where they printed trillions of dollars during the pandemic. Wall Street got their loans were forgiven. I still have a goddamn SBA loan that I have to pay back. I know small business owners with PPP loans that are paying them back. What is this dingleberry asshole talking about when she says this financial system is what?
She's she's a senator, so she represents all Americans, and she is on the Financial Services Committee. So show up at the go to New York and show up at the Fed discount window. Is it out of New York or DC? And, just show up at the Fed discount window and say you'd like some overnight loans for, zero zeros. Well, actually, they're paying you. They pay the bankers to borrow money overnight, right? So go there and see if actually pretty much everybody, Liz Warren told you that we all have the same access to the financial system. Well, so play by the same rules. See if you get the same rules that Jamie Dimon gets or Citibank gets or any of these other big banks get, and I guarantee you won't get that. They might actually send somebody to arrest you.
Right? Yeah. She's partially right. I mean, you could say that everybody plays by the exact same rules of accounting fraud.
Yeah, it's literally. And this argument makes my ears bleed. She lists all of these things that crypto is using. I'm like, you're right. The U.S. dollar's never been used for drugs or human trafficking. I mean, Jeffrey Epstein had a fake goddamn hedge fund. He would have videos of these powerful people committing sex acts with children. And he'd go, well, we videotape this and leverage it. And then, oh, by the way, now these people would miraculously invest in his fake hedge fund. By the way, we can't seem seem to find all of this. We don't want to know who was on his plane. We still haven't arrested anybody. And she says this like the US dollar has more drug and blood on it than anything. And this is the stupid grandstanding. I remember in 2017, the CEO of Wells Fargo got, they brought him up on kangaroo court charges, and she, in front of Congress, gave him a stern talking to, and the guy got $120 million severance, Pat. I'm like, okay, you want to pay me $120 million? Liz Warren can paddle my bald ass in front of Congress and we can live stream it. If you want to give me $120 million, I'll take that. We'll call it the Grand Melwood Ass Coin.
President Bukele just totally owned Peter Schiff on Twitter. Peter Schiff said in response to Zero Hedge talking about, he replied to President Bukele. President Bukele had tweeted earlier when Bitcoin's market price was low, they wrote literally thousands of articles about our supposed losses. Now that Bitcoin's market price is way up, if we were to sell, we would make a profit of over 40% just from the market purchases. And our main source of Bitcoin right now is our citizenship program. We won't sell, or of course, at the end, one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin. That was true then when the market was low, and it's true now. But it's very telling that the authors of those hit pieces, the analysts, the experts, and the journalists are totally silent now. Remember this next time they spill lies again about El Salvador. So Peter Schiff replied to President Bukele, talk about those profits after you sell and you realize them. And President Bukele retweeted that and said, cry harder. He didn't put the screen right now. Usually Max would put
This is amazing that a president is just trolling these clowns. Like I love that Bukele does this. Like, cry harder. This is beautiful. Like, and Max, I love you always get that one gif of that doll from Team America.
Yeah, that's from America.
Team America.
Team America, the vomit scene, the projectile vomit scene, which is a beautiful representation of puppets vomiting, I think. And, it's Peter Schiff checking out the Bitcoin price. Peter Schiff's been dead wrong. But to get to the point here, President Bukele, well, not only, running a country and reinventing politics as we know it and doing all these incredible things, is also a master troll on Twitter.
Yes.
He is a master troll on Twitter. Nobody else has the skills. Donald Trump, I guess, he's a bit too verbose, I think. He's not in the same class, really.
No.
President Bukele understands the meme market. We ran into somebody a few years ago who said that they didn't think that Hillary had any chance of winning the presidency because she never understood memes. And she was being defeated by memes. Remember Pepe the Frog? She bought into the fact that it was a Nazi representation, and she took that to the mass media, and she got laughed off stage, and it really hurt her because she seemed completely out of touch. And that's true for probably every single politician in the world. I think President Bukele is the only politician who really understands the subtlety of social media and memes, and he doesn't go overboard with it, but he knows how to go for the jugular in 5 or 6 words. And this is a great example of it. And he's saying a lot there because Peter Schiff, of course, represents the gold lobbyists and the gold bugs, and they're getting demonetized, as we talked about on the last show. And it's about the legacy system, and they're being one-upped by this new arrival of the perfect money. Peter Schiff ran for Congress at one point. So he's part of the political class, and he's being outshined, by somebody who really is a true politician. And so this is just a genius tweet. That'll go down in history. It'll be part of the Rosetta Stone when future generations of aliens arrive and look for proof of intelligence in the year 2024. This will be proof.
Cry harder. These are the things you need. This is for, as Graham had mentioned at the top of the show, all the newbies who would be arriving with this new cycle is, you need something to tune out the shitcoiners, like in the chat groups, trying to grab your Bitcoin, trying to convince you to part with your Bitcoin for their dingleberry shitcoin. And the same thing is like the haters are going to hate. Peter Schiff has been hating since Max told him about Bitcoin at $10, right? So he's been hating on Bitcoin that whole time, and he's still hating on Bitcoin at 61,000 right now. So it's just like absurd. So you need a way Cry harder is a good one. Your mother is another one. Max always says that.
Yeah, there's 4 only responses on Twitter that I use. And, one of them is, well, your mom. Because remember, Twitter, the average age on Twitter is 13, essentially. And these are the average age of Twitter, the people that are just barely potty trained. So you need to really address the audience. So it's always like your mom or cringe or cope. And I had this great use of your mom. That was, a lot of people commented on how genius it was. Somebody said to me, tweeted back, referring to a tweet like, "This isn't going to age well." I was like, yeah, like your mom.
Like that's the beautiful thing when they think they're going to get you to back down and you just keep going harder. I that's my favorite.
Plus, they figure that I'm like, I wouldn't get in a bar brawl on Twitter with such base comments, but I'm toning it down recently, and I'm just kind of, I've muted over 70,000 people. So we actually don't see a lot of things on Twitter anymore. I've insulated myself.
I like writing, just suck it. That's my favorite thing. Just suck it right there. And they're like, yeah, but Graham, just write suck it. Cause it's really it's to the point. Like, I don't care what you're saying. Just suck it. There you go. Whatever you're saying.
People in the comments say the background is better than the Sbarro. Damn, that was bad. I was embarrassed to even be on the live stream. I was like, this is so low. This is like a Dingleberry podcast.
Yeah, really.
It's like the Liz Warren podcast. Crypto's bad. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm a crazy old person. Yeah, this new background is amazing. That's why we've got huge, over 400 viewers. It's crazy. And Sbarro might take legal action, but we'll deal with that later because they're a fraud for a pizza lobbyist group that's making the pizza Dingleberry coin as we speak.
Yeah, well, we've been having a hard time since we've been in the US for a week now, and we were trying to actually find pizza, and we might have to go to New York City.
Yeah,
just to get some pizza, because I've tried like 4 or 5 different pizza joints and in North Carolina, and I have to say, man, it's pretty dire. It's really dire. We found a good place in El Salvador, and now I'm trying to find a good place here, and I can't. I just can't.
Yeah, I'm so proud of Stacy. She's become a proper pizza snob.
I am a total snob. Like they don't do slices here, right? So you have to buy a whole pizza pie. And, I've just been tossing them. Like I try to take one bite and say, "Fuck this! This is so
yeah." It's like Breaking Bad when Walter White throws the pizza onto the roof. This is Stacy. She's walking around town throwing pizzas on people's roofs, throwing them on the road, just throwing them at people. It's a pizza gal. You heard the pizza rat. What is a pizza gal?
All the pizza rats are, well, actually, they're more like pizza squirrels here. All the squirrels are like chowing down on the pizza.
Yeah, they're having a ball. The pizza party everywhere. Stacy goes. The wild creatures are loving it. Pizza party.
Just chucking pizzas at everybody.
Yeah.
You should make that into a meme.
We need a pizza printing gun that we can just hit people with, like these money guns.
Well, this has been a fantastic episode, you guys, and thank you for taking time to join us from your orange pill bunker where you're making pizzas to chuck at people, and that's fantastic.
Or in Peter Schiff's case, we're making pizzas to upchuck on people.
He's one of those guys that he's never going to admit he's wrong, and he's just going to go down in history as the guy.
It's like the guy they found in World War II, who was a Japanese fighter. They found 30 years later to surrender.
Jaime Garcia is asking me where I get my pizza in El Salvador, and we go to the President Tower. We go to Nomad at the President Tower. That's one that's the good one. Yeah,
there's that's the good one, Nomad in San Salvador.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good pizza. It's good pizza. I mean, it's not New York pizza. New York pizza is the best in the world, but it's it's better than anything in North Carolina that I've tasted so far.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to get into a debate here with Max because I'm from Chicago, so I think Chicago pizza is the best. But
shut the fuck up! Don't even say it's like don't talk. You don't have pizza in Chicago.
It's quiche. It's not even pizza.
Swearing, but I bring it. Chicago pizza brings that out. It's fake.
My arms are this big because of Chicago style pizza. That's what this is. This is
Chicago so-called pizza is a dingleberry.
Yeah, because they're so heavy. They're so heavy. You need to be able to deadlift 50 pounds just to get it out the shop, because it's nothing but dead weight. It's like 50 pounds of quiche with some tomato sauce on top, and they call that a pizza? No.
It's just a whole
I'm going to bring back the Sabaro background because you guys have dishonored my Chicago pizza.
You have to say pizza.
Yeah, talk to Jack Mollers about Chicago pizza. He'll tell you point blank, it's crap.
He agreed.
Okay, they have good chicken and good hot dogs. They're really good hot dogs in Chicago,
really good.
because of the meat markets are right there. Okay, but pizza, no, lay off the pizza. Don't even call it pizza. Call it Chicago deep dish quiche, and let's just call it a day.
I'm sure there's a fight starting in the chat if there's anyone from Chicago in the chat. I had an old roommate from New York. We would have this argument every time we ordered pizza. And it's a fantastic one. But thank you all so much. And I hope you find good pizza wherever you're at.
Yeah, thank you, Graham. You don't sound sincere, Graham. Yeah, I think you're not sincere. I don't think you're really sincerely hoping we find good pizza, because we've insulted your Chicago style. They call it Chicago style pizza because it's just a stylistic interpretation of pizza.
I was about to say, in terms of Chicago style, one thing you notice is, like, anywhere you look outside of New York or Chicago, if you're looking for pizza anywhere else in the US, they offer only New York style. They advertise, hey, we have New York style. Nobody, I say nobody at all outside of Chicago ever advertises or sells Chicago style.
Because they don't know how to make it.
No,
that's why.
It's a dingleberry of pizzas. Nobody wants to even be associated.
No.
Al Capone turned himself in just to avoid the pizza.
This is heresy. This is absolute heresy to my Chicago brethren. Agree to disagree. We'll just leave it there.
It's a slippery slope, Graham.
We're
it's
right.
a slippery slope.
But we're right. We'll agree to disagree, but we're right.
There's
everybody in the chat room agrees.
There's no pizza relativism on this show. Orange Pill is pizza. We're pizza maximalists, and there is only one town. That's New York City. Now, New Jersey, which is just a little tunnel ride away, a PATH train away. Okay, they've got a lot of pizza makers over there. I give them a nod. Bruce Springsteen loves a nice slice over at his local pizza joint. But that's it. But maybe Connecticut, one or two shops, some people that fled New York to make a pizza. But that's it. That's where the pizza border ends. Everything beyond that is shit. And that's a known fact. And we're willing to die on this hill.
Well, I bet you Peter Schiff doesn't like Chicago pizza either. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to leave it right there.
His name. He's the dingleberry of commentators. Everybody's a dingleberry but me.
You should get that as a shirt. Everyone's a dingleberry but me.
Right. So go retweet the president. Cry harder, bitch. He should have added bitch to the stuff. He should have called him a bitch.
That's another thing. My advice that went unheard.
Yeah, exactly.
All my advice. I said cut the national anthem in half. It's too long. The Salvadoran national anthem. It's 4 minutes. It's the third longest national anthem in the world. I said you got to cut it to 2 minutes. He's like, no, Max, no, we don't want any of your ideas, actually. So that didn't happen, sadly.
Well, who knows? Maybe that'll happen. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been a blast. As always, follow us at Orange Pill Pod, at Max Kaiser, at Stacy Herbert, at Graham Elwood. That's all scrolling below. And like, share, and subscribe. We're dropping more clips and all of this. I'm sure there's going to be a separate pizza debate clip that's going to come out of this hour, in addition to all of the useful information that you can have. If you're new to Bitcoin, just buy Bitcoin. Don't mess with the shitcoins. Just buy Bitcoin and hold it, and you'll be fine. That's all you got to remember. That's all you got to remember. That's the only thing you need to know.
Next show, I'm going to tell you about my secrets for controlling cholesterol. Okay? You don't need this book. This book, cholesterol. Okay, you don't need that book. I'll tell you how to fix your cholesterol problem next show.
And I'll also mention before we go, the market's closed and the ETF volume, the Bitcoin ETF volume was 7.69 billion today. Crazy, unbelievable. So it's
Huge numbers.
That's huge institutional money coming in there.
Yep.
So
That's huge numbers, pal. You
get
know,
ready, man.
I don't even have a golf metaphor for that. Are we going to end this show
Let's
anytime
go.
soon?
I'm trying. I keep
Okay,
trying.
let's go. Bye. 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 We're leaving.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Thank you, Max and Stacy. Thanks for watching. Follow us, like us. Have a great time. Thanks, everybody. I'm shutting the mic off.